moving moving right along, Jasper is our next presenter, and she is with the Forest Service out of Cloudcroft, and she should be able to share your screen, Jasper, whenever you're ready to start your presentation. So thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jasper Clifford, the Natural Resource Specialist on the Lincoln National Forest. I'm an alumni from New Mexico State University. I got my bachelor's degree in wildlife science and continued on with my master's in range science. And so thank you for having me here tonight. It's great to kind of come full circle back and talk about my job now. And like Shelomia said, I've worked with Matt and Shelomia getting my master's degree. So it's really great to see some familiar faces and some new ones tonight. So thanks again for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to give kind of like a little background about our agency, particularly in Region 3. So again, I work for the U.S. Forest Service. I'm part of Region 3, which includes New Mexico and Arizona. And the three kind of main values that our region is focusing on right now is recreation, restoration, and relationships. And you know, part of that whole relationship thing is continuing on with our partnerships and recruitment. And so it's great to be a part of this tonight. This picture on this slide is part of the Sacramento Ranger District in High Rolls. Some of you might be familiar. You can see White Sands out in the background. This is off of West Side Canyon. It's one of my favorite spots on the forest, so I thought that'd be a nice picture. I use lots of pictures that I've taken for my job. So I work again for the Lincoln National Forest. It consists of 3 different districts. The District 1 is the Smokey Bear Ranger District, and that's the picture on the left. You can see where the Little Bear Fire happened back in 2012. This picture was taken, we're trying to do some restoration in this campground presently, and so you can still see the burn scar and all the burnt snags in the background, but it's starting to grow back nicely. The middle picture, this is our Sacramento Ranger District. It's one of my favorite spots on the forest. This is on a mother spring with a bunch of our endangered Sacramento mountain thistle, and it's overlooking the Sacramento mountains, and it's just a really nice part of the district. And then the third picture is our Sitting Bull Falls on our Guadalupe Ranger District, which is in Carlsbad. So the first district's in Ruidoso, second one's in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, and then the third is in Carlsbad. One other important thing about the Lincoln National Forest is it's home of Smokey Bear. This is actually where he was found in the Capitan Mountains, and this is his burial site that you can still go visit in Capitan. So it's a pretty cool part to New Mexico history. So I just wanted to go over some of the main things that you can get a job into on our forest, at least. We have administration, archaeology, botany, ecology, engineering, fire, fuels, heritage, hydrology, NEPA, range, recreation, silviculture, soils, timber, and wildlife. There's much more little ins and outs to all of those positions, and great career paths for all of those. This picture that I have is off of that same road, West Side. There was a fire this year called the Cherry Fire. that I took a picture of. And then down below is a little ghost town in the Jicarilla Mountains. And this was actually a schoolhouse. So that kind of is representing our archaeology heritage portion. And then down here on the right, we have one of our timber staff members climbing a tree to change out some wildlife cameras that we have installed to monitor elk and cattle utilization in some of our critical habitats. So he's hiking up that tree to change the wildlife cameras for that. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on my position. As I said, I'm the natural resource specialist, and some of the things that I do for my job is compliance monitoring for biological opinions, which are issued from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, in which we have to monitor our utilization from our permitted livestock and threatened and endangered plant and animal or wildlife habitat. And I help organize and conduct all the monitoring surveys to support our various natural resource programs. I'm the invasive species and pesticide coordinator, and I am the seasonal crew lead for the natural resource monitoring that we do. And part of the extra stuff that comes along with my job is NEPA and partnerships and civil rights participation. So I just wanted to go into kind of the basics of creating a monitoring protocol and so these are the main things that I try to think of when I'm looking at what we're monitoring and what are the questions that we're trying to answer here, because lots of people come into it and want to measure all these different things, but is it really answering the question that you're trying to get at, and is it useful data? And so that's really important. And that, what are your goals for monitoring? Are you trying to conserve a species? Are you trying to look at what forage is available? Are you concentrating more on livestock or wildlife habitat? Because there's going to be different methods that you need to apply for those. And then what are your objectives? What are you trying to get out of this? Again, the big why. Why are you doing all this? And what are you trying to, what questions are you trying to answer? And so I have this picture of our endangered Sacramento mountain thistle, and you can see in the background there's this, what I call the Jurassic Park fencing, because it's like above 6 feet of pipe fencing to keep elk out too, and it's pretty intense. We put this up in our New Mexico meadow jumping mouse habitat, but as you can see, there's more than just that endangered species in this habitat area. And I wanted to show you all an example of what I've been doing, are some of our new technology that we're using right now with creating some of these monitoring protocols. And backtrack a little bit, I took the vegetation monitoring course offered by Dr. Bailey at the time. I'm not sure who's teaching it now, but that course prepared me more for my job than any other course I think I took, because it really helped me to answer some of these questions and prepare protocols for when I'm out in the field. And so one thing that we utilize a lot is ArcGIS, and Survey 123 and Arc Collector are kind of these little applications that are part of ArcGIS that we are starting to utilize. And I'm sure some of you use Avenza and Gaia, and they kind of operate in the same way. So this is Survey 123, and I've kind of put this protocol together for the Sacramento prickly poppy. It's an endangered flower on our forest.
Sorry to interrupt, Jasper, but we can't actually see that part of your screen. It's still sharing PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If you stop sharing and then start resharing again
Okay.
to the new screen, you should be able to. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, can everyone see it now?
Yes, thank you.
So this is our ArcGIS Survey 123. What it allows me to do is kind of create my own data sheet that I can access on an app on my phone. And so when I have my crews going out, they can pull up their phone and it'll connect, and they can answer some of these questions that I have that I want to know. And the really cool thing about it is it gives you an option to put your GPS location. And so one of the methods that I use is photo point, and I have my crew take a picture, and this automatically does the bearing for you. And you know, it allows me to say, you know, are the poppies present in the reproductive stage. So it's pretty neat technology that we're starting to use more. And so I highly encourage the GIS classes. They really helped me when I was getting my degree with this career and being able to access these new technologies that are available. So I'm going to change back to my presentation now.
I wish we had those as grad students, Jasper. That app looks fantastic.
It's pretty nifty, and you know, it sure does make my job easier because it will run reports for us, and it'll put everything in an Excel table if we want, so we can then put it in the attribute table. And it sure takes, I mean, I know the days of having to do data entry from hard copies, and I'm still a big fan of hard copies. They sure, when in doubt, they pull me through. So, but it is pretty neat stuff. And my cohort, Renee, who's here tonight, she's helping us develop an allotment inspection form. So we can go out and do baseline allotment inspections and look at our infrastructure and utilization, and just have kind of, you know, a baseline, something to go off of 10 years from now. We can go to this point and say, oh, okay, we came and checked this, and this everything's all right at this point, or however, because I think just on one of our allotments alone, we have about 60, I mean, one of our districts alone, we have about 60 allotments. So it gets to be a lot of monitoring. And with that, that's kind of why I've taken on some of the compliance monitoring on this next slide. It involves endangered and sensitive species. So I monitor the livestock, grazing, and endangered habitat. So for the Mexican spotted owl, I look at stubble height and ground cover, and that's using the line in intercept, like what Matthew was talking about earlier. I also use landscape appearance, which is, you know, it's more of an ocular estimate, but it's good for looking at multiple times over the season just to keep an eye on the growth. And then we do photo point. For the New Mexico meadow jumping mouse, I look at visual obstruction using the Robel pool, landscape appearance, and photo point. And then for the Sacramento prickly poppy, we look at presence, absence, their sexual reproductive state, ground cover, and do soil tests for them. And then I also look at a sensitive species called the Wright's marsh thistle. It's getting proposed to be listed, and so I've been looking at its abundance every year. And so these are just all things that I have to track. And this is just on a range perspective. These are all looking at meadow habitat in areas where there are cattle grazing at least one part of the year. And so in these pictures, you can see the Mexican spotted owl. We took this picture up in our Rio Doso district. There's the Wright's marsh thistle. that's the sensitive species up in the top right. And then in the lower right, this is one of my large utilization cages that I have put up to measure the stubble height and growth throughout the grazing season. And just these bigger cages help you get a much better picture. And so you can see the difference between at the inside of the exclosure and the outside with the red top and the inside. And then you see the stipa, which is an unpalatable grass along the outside, but everything else is getting pretty mowed down on the outside of this exclosure, which is inside of an exclosure. So this is an exclosure and an exclosure. So, you know, unless you have the big Jurassic Park fence, it's hard to keep everything out. So then the other part of my job is organizing and conducting these surveys in support for all of our different programs. I do stuff for botany. I got pulled into counting some of our wild Gooding's onion, which is endangered, on our Ski Apache slopes this year. This was like some side work that was emergency work that I had to go do. This is a picture of infiltration for some of our soil stuff along the transects that we measure for soil disturbance and hydrology. We've been doing a lot of stream restoration. In this bottom right picture, this is myself, our natural resource crew, and the wildlife crew from the Ruidoso district restoring that South Fork campground. And in that top right picture, there's a picture of a bladder bag that we use to carry the water to go water these trees that we planted. But some of the surveys that I have to do for just the Forest Service data is our common stand exams, collective non-vegetative sampling protocols, the FS-Veg, Parker 3-step, you guys might be familiar with that one, stand replacement, habitat suitability indexes, and then the rapid assessment methodologies. We all are required to enter this into our database at the end of every year. I'm also the Forest Invasive Species and Pesticide Coordinator, and I monitor and treat the non-native invasive plants and their populations. With that, I have to be familiar with their different herbicides and pesticides, and have to be licensed to treat them and oversee the data entry for them. And I'm participating on the ID team for the environmental impact statement we're getting put for our NEPA to be able to spray weeds forest-wide if we need to for certain projects. And then I also oversee the crew. So I delegate and organize the protocols and conduct different monitoring surveys, such as for our best management practices. Proper functioning condition is something we use to track or assess our riparian systems. We check our water rights and different springs and seeps and their availabilities, and have to do soil disturbance stuff, and then the invasive species. And this is my crew this year. So as you can see, like what Matt was describing, we have our transects laid out, and this is Matt, our botanist on the crew this year. He has his phone out to do a stopwatch for the infiltration and the soil moisture, and we got to go to all 3 districts this year, even with the pandemic, so that was pretty nice. Carlsbad is kind of hard to get to. This is a picture of one of the caves in Carlsbad, and even though I do range, I still get to explore a little into the caves, which is a nice part of the job too. So I just wanted to go into how to apply and any tips for hiring and answer any questions. All of our jobs are listed in USA Jobs, and most of the jobs, so the positions I fly for my crew are biological science technician and forestry technician, And anyone coming out of a range background with these classes taken for plant ID, veg monitoring, wildlife range, you'll qualify for these crew positions. And I will say that there's been a few people that have left my crews recently that now have permanent jobs. So they're great intro jobs and ways to start a career and get a lot of experience. So I tried to list all of the jobs that I feel like folks would be able to apply for on this webinar. But like I said, there's so many different jobs you can apply for out there. And I listed my email. If any of you have want to pass your resume on for me to look over, I had someone do that for me when I was at NMSU, and here I am now. So just having that person to kind of give you advice. I will say that when I was going to NMSU, they kind of told us to keep your resume short and simple, but agencies, it's the more the better. So, bullets are nice. I kind of took stuff from my resume to show you all what my job's about. But, I want to see everything that you can have to offer. And so with that, I'll take any questions or comments, anything about grazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jasper. That was a great presentation and a very good overview of what seems to be a super fun job that you get to do every day. Does anyone have any questions?
How many days a year do you think you're outside, Jasper?
Well, it depends on the time of the year, and if we're not in a pandemic, so right now I try to get out at least once a week. At the end of October, most of our cattle are leaving, and I'll have end of the grazing season monitoring to do. But starting in April, before the cattle come on, I have to do my pre-grazing stuff. And then during the monsoons, it heats up because that's the peak of the growing season. My crews do what are called 10s. They work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, just to make sure that they get to their sites on time and get everything done. And if I can go out with them as much as I can, I do. I do get stuck writing the reports and attending meetings and stuff, but I enjoy it and get out when I can.
We're envious, so that sounds very nice.
It is fun.
Any other questions? Anyone going to take Jasper up on her lovely offer to look through resumes? Maybe I will.
Yeah, and if you guys want to come up to see the allotments or anything, you're always welcome. I do work with the range ecology course with Dr. Sibbles and trying to get you guys up there to help me collect data and then help you guys get out of the desert and into some nice mountain air and see some endangered habitat and all that. So I really appreciate the partnership we have with you guys and would love to have you all up here anytime.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And we will now transition to Renee. And I appreciate everybody sticking with us here. I know we're going a bit over, but I appreciate it. And I think you guys will learn something from Renee as well.
Thank you.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, because I don't want you to see me. So a lot of my presentation is going to actually mimic Jasper's. I'm actually the rangeland management specialist on the Guadalupe Ranger District. My path of getting here was a little different. I have a bachelor's in natural resources. So a lot of my actual range experience has come from on-the-job training. I had a lot of other transferable skills that we'll definitely go over. So one thing not to get kind of tunnel vision is just because you go to school for range and that might be your passion, it's a whole lot of other things that goes into our job. And it's a lot of interdisciplinary. It's a lot of, you help out everybody and you have to be a little of a lot. So these are all the opportunities that we have on just my district, not just the forest, but just on my small district. So we have rangeland, recreation, wildlife, our cave ecosystems, natural resources, NEPA, fire, forestry, botany. It's like all the ologists in the world we have out here and it's available. I do definitely stress the GIS class. When I went to school, I failed that class so bad they offered me my money back. But it has turned to be very important. I can actually make a map now. So these are just some pictures on the district. Like I said, especially with our small crew that we have, everybody helps everybody. So recreation, I spend at least probably a month, a year, just doing nothing but recreation type duties. Wildlife is a very big thing, integrated discipline with rangeland. Everything that we do has to be pretty much approved through the wildlife biologist on the district. They have to work together and not opposing each other. We have T&E species that we have to protect. So you have to have some wildlife background. Like I said, on our district, we have a lot of the cave systems which impact our grazing. Just about all of our caves are on one allotment. And we've had to actually close a lot of areas just so they won't fall into the holes. Lots of document writing. Lots of document writing. I was not expecting that, to be honest. Forestry and fire. On this district, we don't have any forestry programs, but we do have a very active prescribed fire. Again, that's something that rangeland ties directly into. You know, we control the fine fuels that will carry the fire. You would think we're complementary. We're actually not, just because of the system, the desert ecosystem, the overgrazing issues, the wildlife issues, the encroachment of juniper issues. So it's a lot of moving puzzle pieces that goes into just one job. These are the different ologists that we have to consult before we can do anything range related. It's nothing that we can go out there and just do ourselves without having the blessings of everybody. And I know I'm moving fast. I'm just trying to get through because a lot of it is just echoing a lot of what Jasper said. GIS, very big. Make your maps, the collector, the survey 1, 2, 3. We're trying to move more into remote sensing and LiDAR to tell about the rangeland health. Evidently, it puts off different colors. It's above me at the moment, but it's pretty cool technology that you don't really have to be on the ground sometimes for. I wish my rangeland looked like that, but they look really healthy moo-moos. So basically, in my position, like I said, I'm the rangeland management specialist. I spend about 3 days a week out in the field doing exactly this, doing monitoring, inspecting the fences, the water structures, the cows, making sure they are where they are. And then 2 days a week are in the office. So it's making the maps, it's doing the reports, it's talking to the permittees. And that can be kind of challenging at times. It takes a special personality to deal with permittees. So the sociology part is very important. These are some interns that I've had through the early college here in Carlsbad. There was a program that we did. This kid right here, I still have. I've had him for 4 years now. He's been my technician for 2 years, and he's great. So just being able to mentor the next generation of, I don't know, whatever ologist he wants to be. So just, like I said, just different parts of the job itself and the day-to-day life. Pipelines, fences, all sorts of improvements. Lots of technical work through the GIS data. And like I said, we're moving now into the collector, to the survey 1, 2, 3. So these are all the different ways that you can get involved. Of course, you can volunteer, and we will love some volunteers. Especially we need to get like a productions utilization studies going back. We have not had the time or the resources to do it since like the 1960s. So we're really behind the curve. And I saw your mouth drop, Matthew. You didn't have to exaggerate that at all. So if anybody, wants or needs a master's project or a summer project or a feel-good project, y'all let us know. So we do have interns every year. We have seasonals. Actually, that may be closing, may have already closed, I'm not sure. The pathways, I know y'all said y'all had a workshop just a few minutes ago about the pathways. So, summer technicians, then it'll be the specialist, which is where I'm at. Then it'll be a staff position, which is the one right above me. And then the program manager is more down there where Jasper is, taking care of all the range. So this has just been the timeline of employment. It takes a long time for us to hire somebody. So like right now, our announcements went out in September. You won't start until March, and that's how far in advance that our announcements are. So if you're even thinking about employment on any type of summer level, you need to apply about a year before. So the timelines are very important to watch out for the federal government. USA Jobs, that's where everything is located. It's very simple, actually. You create your account, upload your resume, and apply for jobs. And like Jasper said, if y'all have any questions or if you want us to look over your resumes, if you want us to help out with anything, please give us a call because we are definitely available. And that's it. If y'all have any questions.
Great, Renee. Thank you so much for sharing, and I appreciate you getting through the material a bit quick. I hope you didn't feel rushed, but that was very helpful. And I think for me, it's interesting to see the difference in positions and how Jasper handles a lot of different aspects with the endangered species. And then just to have more of a range specialist. And it sounds like you might be able to get out in the field a bit more than her right now, which I bet Jasper's a bit envious.
Luckily, we're able to help each other out, so.
That's awesome. Do we have any questions from the students?
It's only been a few years on that data set, huh?
Yeah.
That's I'm drawing a blank, but did you ever work with a Carl from our department?
No.
I think it was last name at all.
I don't know, Carl.
He was telling me about a very similar, probably the same data set. This was a few years ago, but I'm kind of interested because some of my data is looking at the same sort of long-term trends in veg at the Chihuahua Desert, Rangeland Research Center here. So it'd be kind of interesting to have a comparison to compare it to at some point. So I might get in contact with you.
Yeah,
not that I need to put more things on my plate, but it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, even if y'all want like a show and tell day, let us know. We'll make it happen.
Cool. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank y'all.
Well, if anything came out of the webinar, Renee, hopefully you got Matt all signed up to take over that data set free of charge.
Yeah, and I'm holding him to it, and I have witnesses.
Great. Well, does anyone have any final comments they would like to add? I really appreciate everybody's time, and I know some of you are on back-to-back webinars right now. And we've lost a few people here recently, but I really appreciate it. And we will keep you informed regarding our technical webinar series. Just a quick plug for our next webinar. It will be on creating science-based social media. And so maybe this is some things that the people still left on here might be interested in. I know it's out of my area of expertise. I can hardly handle my personal social media. So I'm sure I will learn a lot, and that is going to be on November 12th, and we will circulate that information as well.